We are live.
Woo, made it.
There we go. We finally made it. A little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but here we are, man.
It worked out.
Hey, so you just learnt my name about half an hour ago.
I was like Googling it. I'm like, all right, it's one of three chances, and I'm glad it's Andy. Nice to officially meet you, man.
You too. And I still only know you as Nuevo Sol. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah. So Melina Mesa here in LA. I actually live in West Hollywood, which is LA County, but 6 miles from downtown LA. Here in sunny California. It's 12:15. I hear the club across the street having a Sunday fun day.
It's such a different world to where I am at the moment, man. We're minus 6 degrees, and I live in a tiny little village.
Ooh, dang. Yeah, I heard another one of your live streams the other day, and you were talking about it being negative, and I can't even imagine. I was wearing a jacket earlier, and it's like 60, so I can't complain.
It's such an insane thing, I'm a Sydney boy.
Oh, no way.
And I've been living here now for this is my third Christmas. So I'm trying. Yeah, it's a huge change, and I think I don't see any negative about living in a tiny little village. I've got a family. I've got aspirations to do bigger and better things, and I think this kind of equalizes me. It calms me down, and it removes me from the stress of big city life, which I was so accustomed to. But hey, man, have you always been from LA and Hollywood?
Yeah, pretty much. Like born and raised in LA, or like Covina, which is 20 miles from here. But for the most part, yeah, I kind of moved a little around. I was in Indiana randomly, then I was in Northern California and San Francisco, and I've been back in LA like 4 years now, and time is flying.
Shit, but, is this the first time you're competing in Legacy?
It's my first year. This is actually my first year just really putting myself out there and competing in general for bar competitions. And thank you. It's been a great year. I've been super lucky to make finalists and win a couple other competitions. And this one is obviously very different. Very just putting yourself out there. I mean, even live streaming with you. I get my nerves and my shyness comes to play. So these are great stepping stones to the big day next month. Or not next month. Our next semifinals are in Puerto Rico in February.
Oh, so shit!
Yeah, I'm like halfway through. We're about 5 weeks in, 5 weeks to go. So,
wow, man, that was one thing that really interested me about speaking with you and the market that you're in, because one thing that I'm learning speaking to so many different bartenders from around the world is each market is so unique. And from my perspective, here in Sweden, we only really had about 60 competitors that entered in the first round. And so we went from 60 to 8 to 3, and we didn't have to do any final kind of presentations in front of a crowd. Like the ambassadors just came around, they met us, we went out for lunch, and then they selected us from there.
Oh, sweet. That was for top 8 or from the 60?
No, that was from 8 to 3.
Right on.
And then we have our Nordic finals. We combine our finals with Norway, Denmark, and Finland.
Oh, wow.
And then we all compete against each other, but we're competing for the right for our own country. So I've heard some crazy stories from a guy in Macau. It's China, Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong all fighting for one spot.
Wow. Yeah, so, that's talk about global right there. That's what a collaboration. And congrats to you, man. I mean, top 3 that's huge.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that, and to you too. I mean, like I said, I'm super proud, and I'm hella stoked to be top 3 in Sweden. But I mean, you're in top 3 of a country that would gobble Sweden up. I mean, how many? Do you know the numbers of how many competitors you've beaten out up until this point?
No, so I don't know, and that's actually a little different, even more so, as the fact that this is the first year, from what I hear so far, that the U.S. is doing things a little different. It's actually 12 West Coast and 12 East Coast, and we're competing for the top West Coast and top East Coast to go to the global final come February.
Oh,
so
shit.
It's different than the top 3, in Sweden and throughout the world, which is different. We're all kind of playing catch up, but I guess it makes sense when there's so many other countries competing at different times. They kind of have to have everything, you know, built in that structure. So
yeah, right. And do you have much of a connection with your other 11 competitors from the West Coast?
From the West Coast, yeah. So there's actually, out of the US, out of 24, there's 3 girls, which is pretty rad to be one of the 3 amongst the other guys. Another one, Kayla, shout out to Comeback Kid. She's here in LA as well, and we're working on some collaborations for something coming up. I do know a handful of competitors. One of them I just did another competition with, El Chirreño. He's a pretty rad guy, Pete, out in East Coast. So, but slowly, I mean, I'm meeting people, I feel like, on the daily, not just in the US, but, you know, you and throughout the world, which is, you know, it's fascinating, man. It's a good time.
And you know, it's so crazy because one of the big driving forces for me behind starting this whole live streaming thing was, you know, this is my first real kind of go at Legacy. 2 years ago, back in Sydney, I kind of had I throw a drink in. If it makes it, it makes it. If it doesn't, whatever. And I wasn't really taking it that seriously. But this year, I thought to myself, no, you know, I hear all these stories about how connected this Bacardi family is. Is it true? And that was kind of the reason why I wanted to do this. You know, I'm sitting here in this tiny little town, and I wanted to meet people. You know, I wanted to see and hear different people's stories and perspectives, and you know, it kind of speaks to the ethos of my drink, Cubist.
Great idea. I mean,
cheers, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. You know, I'm enjoying it immensely, man. I like to hear. You're my 3rd live stream now, and you know, I can't wait to hear your story, and to hear everybody from you know, from India all the way to Malaysia, now to LA. I think it's a really cool honor, man. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we're all kind of working and struggling with is doing things outside of the box. You know, it's really thinking of something unique and out there that not just puts ourselves out there, but like you said, you know, gets us involved with, you know, other competitors, other stories, other legacies. And, you know, the Gran Familia, as they say, it's true. It's out there, and this is it.
And so tell us a little bit about your drink.
So my cocktail, Nuevo Sol, is, there's a lot of aspects to it. So as far as ingredient wise, I wanted to do an elevated twist on all my favorite flavors that connect with my story. But one of my favorites is, you know, classic daiquiri. So there's a little Amontillado sherry. So we're going to start with 1.5 ounces of Bacardi Legacy. You know, part of my connection with that was just having that little bit of aging and maturity, but yet still room to grow, you know, kind of like myself in the industry. I've been here a while, but
nice.
Not going anywhere. There's 1/4 ounce of Amontillado sherry. I'm a huge sherry fan. There's some connection there when it comes to, you know, the Spanish sherry and some of Bacardi, Don Facundo Bacardi's story, going to and from Spain as he grew up. And then we got a little 1/4 ounce of, I'm using a Pierre Ferrand dry curacao, but realistically, you know, dry curacao can really be versatile depending on what bar you're at, because like you said, it's accessibility, you know, being able to replicate this cocktail anywhere in the world. Oleo Sacrum, I just started making Oleo Sacrums, I'd say under 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.
Have you worked with Oleos yet, or?
What was that, man?
Have you worked with Oleo Sacrums before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's super
absolutely
delicious, you know, and I love the foundation of how it was used in punch bowls, you know, in the beginning, and it was punch bowls bring people together, and it's about enjoying a cocktail and, you know, getting in that whole party, bringing people together. And then of course lime to mix it up, and it's just a super easy, delicious cocktail. Yeah, it's a little nutmeg on top. It's doing great.
Perfect, man.
That's pretty much the basis of it, but
you know, I like the use of Oleo Sacrum there. You know, it's one of those additives that it sounds super fancy and really difficult to make. And then, you know, when somebody asks me, "Oh, what is that? Where can I find that?" I'm like, "I mean, you got fruit and sugar."
Yeah, literally, that's
it. then you're all good.
Yeah, it's the patience, I think, too, that comes with it. You know, it's letting it steep, you know, getting those peels just right, because you don't want the pith to get that bitterness, and getting that oil to really release into the sugar. and then using super fine sugar on top of that. You know, you can't just use granulated or powdered sugar, and it's the time it takes to make it, which I really love too. I feel like it just shows a little more that it comes from the heart, you know. But it can easily be interlaced with a grapefruit cordial, you know, grapefruit juice, sugar, just equal parts, just as delicious, just a little different. Yeah. But again, it's about accessibility, you know. It's about being able to make it throughout. That way I can get the cocktail, not just in the States, but, you know, collaborating with bars around the world to be able to make it. So
amazing, man. Yeah.
And yours too. I mean, that's a champagne cocktail with a little pastis, and sounds delicious. We're gonna have to swap some boomerangs, man.
Yeah, please do, man. You know, it was for me, it was all about ease. You know, I wanted my story to be the centerpiece of my drink, and the drink to be you know, a consequence of my story. And I was racking my brain for months and drinking, like sample after sample. And you know, I thought that I was going a little bit too. I was marrying myself to my ingredients too much, and I wanted to make a drink that that was a drink for me. However, in the market that I'm in, that's not what people want, and that's not what people were asking for. That's not kind of. I was batting in the wrong cage, so to speak. And then I stripped it down, and I thought to myself, you know, keep it easy.
Keep it easy.
But keep it radical. You know, like give something that people love, honey water. Give them the freshness, lemon juice. Give them a little bit of class and elegance, the prosecco. You know, and then add a tiny little bit of something that's unusual, something that's unfamiliar, and allows you to think a little bit. And that's where the pastis came in. And then for the longest time, I was pushing Ocho and Cuatro. I was pushing these products, thinking, no, that's what I want to use. I want it to be dark. I want it to be heavy. And all the while, she was sitting right in front of me.
There it is.
You know, and I thought to myself, I'm like, why resist something that's so accessible? It's so versatile. You know, it was the perfect canvas for which I could construct my drink off. And so I think, you know, for everyone listening, when you're making a cocktail drink, especially for competitions, strip it back. You know, it doesn't have to be so complicated. And if you do want to go down that complicated mixology route, you know, a perfect oleosaccharum is an amazing, easy thing to use. And any monkey can make it at home, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I think one of the great things about your cocktails, as well as mine, is you know, having something refreshing and delicious that you don't want just one of. You know, you want two, you want three, you want a handful. You know.
Yeah, it's so funny you said handful, because you know, of each person that I speak to, I go through their Instagrams. You know, I want to make sure that I know what I'm kind of who I'm talking to and what I'm talking about. And you started doing shooters of your drink.
Yeah.
And I like to think that for everything that I do with these streams, I take away a little bit something from someone. And I'm taking that idea, I'm taking it and I'm running with it, man. That's something that seems it's something so simple, right? Such a simple thing to do, and it gets people drinking your drink. It gets people, you know, talking about it, enjoying it, sampling it, and at the fraction of the cost of what a real cocktail is. So, you know, that's fantastic, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you know, you want to try something, but you don't necessarily want to you don't want to take the chance of ordering a cocktail that you are unsure about or you might necessarily like. And you know, shooters is something that reminds me a lot of even champagne. You know, it's about cheersing, it's about bringing people together, and then shooters is one of those. You know, daiquiris are delicious, but what's better than a daiquiri when you can cheers everybody with a snackery? And I didn't want to call it a Sol snackery, you know, and shooters sounds so much cooler. And inevitably, I mean, the majority of the time people have a shooter and they love it, and then they want the cocktail, and it's just, you know, why give one option when you have two? So I hope it works out just as good with you and your cocktail.
Or a Sol Luta.
Ooh, I like that. All right, you steal that from me. I'm gonna steal that from you.
Take it, man.
I mean, even like as you said, like going through Instagrams and, you know, checking out a little bit more about the person, about the cocktail, and looking through yours. besides the obvious radical hangouts that you've been doing. I mentioned to you already, actually, how inspired I am by your art pieces, by your abstract, radical, cubist designs of the bottles of the cocktails. Like, I started messing with some filters and different things with mine. So I'm stealing that from you. We'll call it even.
Take it, man. You know, one thing that I'm really into weird kind of things at the moment. You know, like I like weird pieces of art. I'm kind of into a little bit more abstract music, and I think it's really shining through in my marketing strategy as well. You know, nice. I wanted this marketing strategy to be as authentic to who I am as an individual as possible. And if anyone is listening to this that's competing with Legacy, I think that's a huge tip. You know, you have to stay within who you are, and the second you start trying to breach out and try to do things that you're not capable of, or that you're uneasy with, life gets so much harder. And Legacy is already tough enough as it is. I'm sure you're experiencing that.
Yep.
Like so it's a grind, man.
It is. It's I mean, already working full time. It feels like a whole other full time thing. I think Christmas coming into play both has its ups and its down. Also, like, great, I get a couple days to kind of chill out a little bit. You know, people are busy with family, doing their thing, doing whatever party is going on, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this is also 3 days that I'm losing, so to speak, just by not being able to guest bartend or to reach out to people to collaborate. You know, it's like giving each other that space. But you know, then it's the new year and it's back to business. This is it. You know, it's down to the wire. Even more so on this side, just for the fact that our semifinals come up again in 5 weeks. So I'm laying out the calendar and setting goals and mapping things out, and it's coming together.
Perfect, man. And that's a perfect transition into the first thing I wanted to ask you and for us to discuss. Guest shifts, right? Guest shifts are one of those things that as bartenders we romanticize, right? It's this beautiful idea of jet setting the world and, you know, following in these social media celebrity bartenders in what they're doing. Right. And now when you have the opportunity to do it, you know, when something for me that I take away is how many guest shifts is too many guest shifts, and like at what point does quantity cross over from quality, and how do you differentiate that? So I'd love to hear about, you know, your process of deciding when to use the guest shift card and how you're capitalizing on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did my first guest shift just last week at Harvard and Stone, and it was more than I anticipated. You know, just being overwhelmed by the support and the friends, and even some family that showed up just to have a drink and stay for two or stay for the band playing or whatever that is. But having such an amazing turnout also made me realize that I don't want to set too many guest shifts, because then if I'm doing 2 in a week, you know, who's to say that I'm gonna have the same turnout the second time? And to continue that, you know, for a couple months, it can be a lot. So right now my goal is just, you know, 1 guest bar shift a week. I'm not just doing the bar thing where it's just a big party and shooters are going and everything's awesome, but it's also doing the restaurant. You know, it's communicating to that guest in front in the bar seat and just telling them my story and having those one-on-ones and kind of finding that happy medium between the two. So this next month, I have 1 guest shift a month. I'm sorry, 1 guest shift a week. Trying to not just stay in the community of LA, but I have one coming up in Palm Springs, one in San Francisco. So trying to keep it local, but within, you know, California. Fingers crossed, if I make it to the finals, I'd love to expand that into international shifts. And I think that would be, I don't know, then I think I'm going to rethink things on how, if I want to do, I mean, if I'm traveling, obviously I want to get as many in as I can. So I think it's just, it's a little different, but that's a factor I think I'm going to think more about when the time comes. So for now, I think once a week is rad, having it in the menus and just kind of doing other things to make it work. Have you done any yourself? Any guest shifts?
No, I've got one coming up down south, and I'm kind of in this boat where I'm tossing up the importance of guest shifts. Like, so I spoke to my ambassador, and my ambassador, he told me that, look, you can do 1 million guest shifts and have 10 people turning out at each one. Mm-hmm. Or you could focus your energy on setting up great events, setting up good guest shifts in great established venues, and that would go so much further. At the end of the day, they don't care about who you take a photo with in what venue. They care about the numbers, right?
Yeah,
they care about they care about the consumer. Like, how many consumers did you reach on that event? How many people drank your drink? How many people rebought? And I think sometimes we get lost in that. Sometimes we get caught up too much in the romance of guest bartending and feeling like a superstar rock star for a night, right. and then it all fades back to black in the morning. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing that I kind of came to grips with, and I suppose what we have as an advantage to you guys in the States and back home in Australia is we have Europe at our footstep.
That's true.
Like a flight for me to go to London will cost me in US dollars $15.
That's nothing.
No, man, it's cheaper than a bus ticket.
15, geez, yeah, right on.
So I'm trying to establish some connections with a number of bars that I would love to go personally work at, and bars that I think would be relevant for my drink. But in the same time, I'm also using this as an opportunity to enjoy myself as well. Like I said to Ray yesterday from the Netherlands, the odds are stacked against you as an individual to win this global competition, right? Yeah. And you've been awarded this ability with a financial sum to go out and make something happen. So you have to balance. You have to balance the professionalism, the ingenuity, and also you have to take advantage for yourself. If you want to go work in London for a night, I mean, use the money that Bacardi gave you. Go to London, enjoy yourself, have fun, but make it beneficial in the same breath, right?
Right.
So that's the approach that I'm taking with this. I want to make sure that I'm hitting the right places, I'm doing the right things, but in locations that I want to travel to.
Yeah, that way it benefits everybody involved, especially like you said, somewhere that your cocktail fits in. Whether you don't just want a cocktail on a menu, you want it on a menu where people are going to order it. And that's something I think that is. I'm learning to kind of get that in between for, it's not just about events. It's not just about telling my story. It's not just about these guest shifts. It's about the numbers. There was a seminar a couple weeks ago for the US with GN, who's a finalist a couple years ago. And he was talking about how during the judging, he was comparing his bottles and how if you stacked up all the bottles he sold, it would be 1.5 Empire State Buildings. And just to kind of put that, in that, right? Isn't that crazy? Like so many. And then, he won and followed up to the next round. And one of the judges remembered that and said, how many Empire State Buildings have you sold now? And it really is a numbers thing. And I think that has really pushed me to not just do these events, but to do private parties or to do whatever it is, because hey, let's get some cases. Let's get this cocktail going. And that's the shooters. That's kind of where that came in. It's
smart move, man.
2-ounce shots, but I mean 1 ounce of each. It really adds up. So
and how do you charge that? And how are you bringing that up? Because at the end of the campaign, we need to show the numbers and the figures and everything. So how are you running off the shots versus the cocktail sales?
Well, I think the shots, I mean, for Nuevo Sol, it's a 5-bottle pickup, the Bacardi, the 2 modifiers, the Oleo, and the juice. So as a 5-bottle pickup, I batched 3 of the things, the spirits together, and then you just add the citrus and that. So what I'm doing is when I'm batching, it's just literally just keeping track of everything. So every 1.5 ounce shooter times 3, I mean, that's a cocktail, or I'm sorry, 2.5 cocktails equals 2.5 shooters equals a cocktail. So it's just literally keeping track of not just how many cocktails or how many cases I'm selling outside of it, but how many shooters, and then adding that number up and dividing it by whether it be a liter or just a regular sized bottle of Bacardi. It's just all math, you know, and I think that's the next thing I'm gonna have to go through. I don't know if you've done the PowerPoint presentation yet, but that's definitely something that I need to come up with something creative. Just as I told you, Gian did with his stacking of the empire.
That's an insane number. I mean, that's an insane image. I mean,
yeah, I don't even know how many that is, but just having exactly the that image of it alone is wow, you know.
It's kind of stressful.
I know. It's I don't even know if mine would come up to it. Let alone I don't know how tall the Empire State Building is, but it really puts it into perspective.
It's fucking tall.
It's fucking tall, man. Oh god, it is. But you know, hey, all I can do is just maintain this steady upflow and, you know, try to think of new creative ways to get my own stack going and take it from there.
Man, it's so interesting that, I mean, this is flowing along so nicely because this leads into, I wanted to talk to you about expectations, and how you manage the expectation of your ambassador, how you manage the expectation of your venue, your family, your friends, and yourself. It's one thing that I'm kind of wrestling with personally as well. You know, I expect so much of myself, and in turn I expect so much of my drink, and how you weigh that up with when you hear somebody say, okay, GN's, you know, he sold 3 Empire State Buildings, and you're like,
you're right,
dude,
yeah,
what?
no, I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to say that, you know, bro. I think that's, I don't know, it's a tough one, man. I think expectations have really been varying for me from the beginning to now. I mean, even when I was looking for inspiration, whether it was my cocktail in the beginning or just the story behind it, you know, I really wanted to do it on my own terms. And I think that's kind of what I'm sticking with now as far as expectations. You know, I didn't want to watch too many other legacies. I didn't want to look at too many different recipes. I wanted to just really come up with something on my own without being these outside influences, you know? And luckily it's all came together so far, but I think that's, as far as expectations go, something that I kind of like not knowing, besides hearing these stories here and there. You know, it's Dan Long has been my ambassador, my mentor throughout this so far. And we haven't really talked numbers too much. You know, I've definitely asked other competitors, you know, where they're, not even where they're at, but what their expectations are and really what goal they have. And for me, it's, I don't think just about, I mean, it is the numbers. That's obviously super huge when it comes to this, but for me, it's about the numbers of people I reach, you know, the people that recognize my logo, that recognize Nuevo Sol. It's more than the numbers, I think, for that, because if you know that, then the numbers will come, you know?
Yeah. I think that's an important thing that you bring up. You know, sometimes you have to live with blinders on, or at least you have to run this race with blinders on to a certain degree, because if you get so caught up and consumed by other people's numbers, then you get swallowed up by them, and it's so then maybe you lose focus on an area that could have been super key for you in your market and with your drink and your concept. So I think it's a really cool thing for people to hear and to know, that, you know, pick and choose when to be ignorant.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The numbers come, as we said. I think, as I mentioned too, it's about also figuring something outside of the box, you know, whether it be a story I heard about another competitor who did a concert, you know, and reached 16,000 people, or someone who thought of connecting with Uber to do a ride share cocktail kind of combo, or so that's something I have yet to find, but definitely something that I'm not going to stop thinking about until I find it. And it's just thinking of how
it consumes you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I knew ahead of time it was going to be eating, drinking, sleeping legacy, and that's a given so far. But right now, it's just, I'm scratching my head, wondering what the next step is. But you know, it's all coming together. It's going to make it happen.
It's so funny because the name of the competition, Bacardi Legacy, it's really that, isn't it? I mean, you enter this thing with the highest of hopes, and the more you delve into it, and the more you travel down this road, the more you realize, like, it takes time to build a legacy. It takes effort to build a legend. And I think it was Connor Myers that you referenced with the festival, the concert.
Yes.
I think he sold 150,000 of his drinks.
Oh man.
And you just think to yourself, okay, all right, I can't copy that, but then how can I make something like that my own? And it is difficult because now it's the 11th year of legacy. How many ideas have come and gone? It's very difficult to be original.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and I think in that consumption of your ideas and your thoughts, I think that there's a lot of peace that comes in that positive stress. At least for me, I think to myself like, oh, I'm working towards something, and yeah, I don't have my 16,000 people concert yet, but I've got ideas. I'm thinking, as long as I'm pushing it along, there's time. There's time. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have about expectations, especially within such a massive cocktail competition like this.
I think that's one thing, besides the numbers, that, I mean, you're excelling at tremendously right now. I mean, you may not be, with every Radical Hangout live stream like this, you not be selling tons of cases, but at the same time, you're connecting with people throughout the world. You're spreading the name of your legacy, of your cocktail, and that in itself is a huge idea. It's, and not to mention getting friends and family now all over the world that can, who knows, help you future that legacy.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, like I said previously, I want to do things that I get enjoyment out of, because if I'm not enjoying this, then there's no point doing it.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, and each person that I speak to, I feel like it feels like I've known you for the longest time. It feels like talking just to another little homie.
Yeah, it does. If you go way back,
Yeah, and it's the coolest thing. And for anyone that's listening to this, we only met on Instagram 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
Yeah, probably just comments here and there,
And I suppose that's a great thing to talk about. That you have to branch out. You have to engage with people. And we spoke to Ray about this yesterday. That if you shut yourself in, and if you say, okay, I'm just focusing on me and my drink and my journey, you miss a lot of opportunities, and you miss opportunities that aren't just legacy related. You miss a lot of life opportunities. Who's to say? I mean, I travel quite often, and I got family down in South America, and we stop off in LA, and now I know that, okay, well, if I'm in LA, bam, I'm coming over for a Nuevo Sol. Maybe this year, maybe in 3 years, you never know. I mean, hell, you might be back in Indianapolis, but.
No, it's so true. And I think that's something that, this is, as you said, this is your first year legacy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, who's to say that, I'm not, you don't take home the win this year. I mean, next year, you have that many more people, you have that many more connections, which is awesome, and especially in this industry, not just guest bar shifts for legacy, but just to travel and to meet people. And I think that's something that's been super huge, acknowledging that, it's talking about putting yourself out of your comfort zone. Like, this is something I would have never thought that I would be doing, let alone the fact excelling at it, So I think finding my legacy and my inspiration has been huge enough. It's changed my life for the better in so many ways, just to say that I've done it, which is huge. So I think we all take away different things from competing, and it's only going to get better the farther we go.
Yeah. I mean, this conversation is working like a dream, man, because this leads me into another point. Taking opportunities. It's, you said that this is you've only really been the last couple of months putting yourself out there and competing, and for young bartenders, that's so integral. If you want to build a career, if you want to project yourself in the industry, within your own market or globally, you have to compete, and you have to put yourself out there on the line, and you have to be present, because if you're not, then I mean, you're just another fish in the ocean, right?
Right. No, yeah, that's true.
So I mean, what is it that you want to take away from this, apart from the competition itself? I mean, what opportunities do you want to enjoy? I mean, you should be celebrated, and you should celebrate yourself for making it this far, because I mean, it's a huge achievement, truly.
Yeah, no, it is, and same goes back to you, man. I mean, you're already one step ahead, and fingers crossed, I can make the same moves to do that. But yeah, I think right now it's just, you know, I'm trying to stay one step at a time. Besides it being a great achievement, I think one thing that I really love is, for me at least, was finding this inspiration. Like, forget the fact if I win or if I take the next step, whatever happens. But one thing that I've taken away from this so far is just to, I've never thought about before, you know, what is the legacy you want to leave? What do you want people to remember you by? You know, and that was something that I'd never thought of before. You know, it's something that you think about, you know, about your life, about living, about death, about, you know, who you are as a person, and how you want other people to think of you. And I think that for me was just a win alone, you know, finding that inspiration, that what Nuevo Sol is, you know, it's a new sun. It means to just take every day in that YOLO kind of way, you know. Yesterday I could be down about something, and today I wake up and, hey, it's a new day for whatever that is, you know, for exercising, for putting myself out there, for, you know, doing a random act of kindness or meeting someone new. It's just all about that new day, that new opportunity. And I think having New Year's around the corner couldn't be more perfect timing. You know, people will wait to make these resolutions to, you know, this year I'm going to do this, and you don't have to wait for that. You know, tomorrow's a new day, and make it happen. You know.
So I'm assuming that's the inspiration behind the name of the drink, correct?
Yeah, that is exactly the inspiration, for sure. So a little about that, I'll break it down for you. Is when starting to think about doing legacy, I wasn't even sure at first, because it wasn't a question I was ready to ask myself, you know, is what my legacy is. And I started really reading more into Don Facundo's life prior to founding Bacardi, you know, and he went through some dark times, man. Him and his family, you know, he had a mercantile shop, he was married, he had 5 kids, and was just, you know, living the life. And an earthquake comes and hits Santiago, and that was just the pivotal point of, you know, all these horrible things that happened. He lost 2 of his 5 kids, you know, following the cholera outbreak post-earthquake. You know, he went bankrupt, and in lieu of all of these, you know, things that have happened, these tragedies, he overcame it, and within a year was like, you know, starting to distilling rum, and just started taking that next step. And when that hit me, I started thinking about my own tragedies, you know, how we each have our own story, and not letting our past define us. You know, it's our past experiences can always become our current identity, you know, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like, they help shape the person we are, and all we can do is do our best to be, you know, a better person. And I think that in itself was just huge for me. And it literally is where I got my inspiration. That's where Nuevo Sol came from. And, you know, it's all just kind of taken off from there.
I mean, that's a great story, and I think that's a great ethos to live by. You know, outside of a cocktail of itself, it's very honest, and it's very rooted in something that we can all access and we can all understand on a personal level. So, hey man, congratulations on tapping into that, because it's a beautiful concept.
Yeah, I think like I said, no matter what happens, you know, to get to this point, to acknowledge the story in itself was super pivotal point in my life, and I think it couldn't have came at a better time. You know, bartending's always had this different connotation with being in the hospitality industry, and it wasn't something that I thought that I would continue pursuing. You know, it was something I did because I loved, but I was going to school and I was trying to figure out other careers, and that's another huge thing I think with Bacardi Legacy it has brought is, you know, this is family, this is future, this is our career, this is our life, you know, and I dig it for sure.
That's awesome, man. You know, to go back to the word opportunity, I think it opens so many doors. You know, for me myself, who I'm only in top 3 in Sweden at the moment, and you know, to get to the final point, holding that trophy, It's still about 4 or 5 steps away. But right now, I'm enjoying each and every opportunity to speak to new people, to make new friends, to visit new cities, to go to new bars, to talk to new people over the bar. And yeah, it is like for Cubist Cocktail, it is a new day every hour.
Literally.
Actually, I opened up my Instagram in the morning, and there's 15 messages from people saying, "Hey, can we join one of these hangouts? Hey, can I come to Sweden? Hey, do you want to come to Greece or to Amsterdam?" And you think like it would never happen if you don't put yourself out there in the beginning.
That is so true. Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't send that drink entry away first, you know, if you don't have the confidence to say, "Hey, maybe I don't make it. Maybe I don't make the first cut. Maybe they laugh at my drink entry and they spit at the screen." You know, I think once you conquer that and you make the first step, then opportunities are bountiful. They're everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about seizing that opportunity. Absolutely. Sorry, real quick. I have been watching a couple of your live streams. You know, I've seen more or less the past two with I don't know their first names as of yet, but Envious and Mispa. As far as radical thinking, I mean, I get the idea of the cubist and the art and coming from a radical perspective. But if you want to give me a little breakdown on your story or how you came about bringing this idea, I mean, talk about like, I don't want to say slogan's the word, but radical thinking, accessible drinking, like that is so good.
No, cheers. Shout out to Jimmy Huth for that. My Bacardi ambassador.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's
good on him.
Because I had radical thinking down, and he told me, he's like, "Yeah, but it's really kind of accessible drinking, isn't it?" And then bam, I just thought to myself, all right, like you said it, I'm claiming it.
Yeah, hold on to it. It works so well. You know, I read it once and I got it in my head for sure.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. So yeah, with Cubist, aside from the art and from fragmentation, and you know, I spoke about how I really enjoy seeing things through perspective, and I enjoy listening to music, looking at art, reading books, looking at graffiti. I look at it through my perspective, and none of that would have been possible without the Cubist movement. Cubism really broke through this idea of you have to paint realistic, and you had to paint 3D, and it had to be something that we could all access from the same point. And what Cubism did was it completely fragmented this idea, and it said, no, I'll access art and interpretation from wherever the hell I want to access it from, not from what you tell me to access it from.
Right.
So that was a huge thing for me. I thought to myself, well, in this period of life, I'm kind of really into weird music and weird art. And when I have conversations with people, and they say, "Oh, like let's see your Spotify list," I'm like,
Yeah, I'm so curious now. I'm gonna make you share that with me later on. I like weird. Looks so weird.
Yeah, it's strange, man. It's really strange. You know, like put it this way: some mornings I can listen to Tibetan throat music, like throat chanting.
Say that again?
Tibetan throat chanting.
Tibetan throat chanting. Oh wow! You know, it's so weird that you say that because is that when they have it? Literally comes from that guttural throat. Yeah, I mean, there's something peaceful about that at the same time. You know, it reminds me of just yoga and meditation, and I mean that's deep.
Yeah. Throw a little bit of drum and bass behind that, and you're kind of in the ballpark of where I'm playing at the moment.
I'm so intrigued. I love it.
So yeah, that was the spawning point of the concept, and Cubism. It arose at the same time that Bacardi was taking off around the world. So in 1910, when Bacardi opened up in Barcelona and New York, and they started spreading throughout the globe, sharing their interpretation of art and redefining their industry. In 1910, in Paris, Cubism broke through, and they started spreading their interpretation of art and their mastering of what redefinement meant for them. So the timelines matched up, and it just seemed like a perfect marriage in bed, you know. And that was, yeah, it was almost too perfect to pass up, actually, in the moment. I think for me, the concept of being weird, but being weird in the right way, and drawing that back to what Bacardi was, and more so, and for me, it's more important to talk about where Bacardi is going, just like where expressionism is going. So I don't harp too much on the past. I focus more on what's possible.
Yeah, that's good though. I mean, it's about looking forward, you know, and that's great. I love that story. I love how everyone is so different, that you come up with this and I come up with something else, and we all have our own path. That's it's inspiring, man. That's good.
And, you know, I think the greatest example would be go to an art museum with a friend and look at the same piece of art. Don't talk about it, and then afterwards discuss what you think that piece meant to you. And that in and of itself is true expressionism. And you know, there's a lot of pieces. I mean, you have these famous pieces where it's just a white canvas painted with a red dot in the middle, and people think to themselves like, "Oh, I could have done this," and that's not art. That's trash. Yet you're still talking about it, and it forces you to analyze it through your own experiences in life and what led you up to that point, staring at that dot, paying money to go inside this museum, you know, to criticize it, to look at it in a certain way. It's done its job, and you know, it's provoked a thought, and that's art.
Yeah, no, it is. It is definitely just as cocktail, you know, is art in a glass for sure. And that's a great point, actually, is having that different perspective. You know, we're all individuals with different ideas of what this red dot in a painting is, you know, and I think it's what we take away from that. So that's definitely pretty cool. I was just at a museum recently, actually last week, and I made it a point to think about the painting before reading a little more about the artist, and just to, oh, okay, then that's where they're coming from. Because when you have these preconceived notions, or you read about something prior to really enjoying it, you know, it can kind of take away from that perspective. So that's a very valid point you got.
Yeah, cheers, man. You know, and it's fun to use a cocktail as an access point to that. You know, it's fun to use something that at the end of the day, like, anyone can really make a drink, right? Yeah. You know, if I gave your recipe to my wife, she could make the drink. And you know, but what she can't do, she can't share your experience, and she can't share your story the way that you share your story. And I think it's another great point to add to for people is, you know, be passionate about what you're creating, and be passionate about the story that you're putting forth in these competitions, because if it's not passionate, and if it's not from the heart, and if it's not authentic, then it's hard to stick with it, and hard to stay true throughout this, I mean, this marathon of a journey that we take.
Yeah. It's so true. It's about staying true to yourself, you know, and that authenticity. I think that's what part of the judges are there for, you know, besides judging on the cocktail, the taste, and the presentation. You know, it's how real are you? How much can you relate to everyone drinking that cocktail and taking it from there? Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's so funny. I just caught us for a split second. I heard what we sound like. And you know, when I watch things on YouTube, and you hear these bartenders talking about, you know, got to stay authentic and stuff, and you think, oh yeah, bro, like the same stuff that you always hear, but it's actually true. You know, it's the things that you say, and the things that we're discussing, like they ring true, because we're experiencing them now with something on the line. If it's just, you know, Mel and Andy having a chat just on a Sunday night, or a Sunday morning, then it maybe doesn't carry as much weight as, well, we're competing for a global competition, and we have these experiences and these perspectives to share, and and it isn't just wishy-washy advice. Like, it's stuff that actually helps you throughout a cocktail process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think besides just, you know, the benefits I'm getting from having this conversation with you is, you know, the fact that it's on YouTube, that fact that other people are checking this out or will check this out. It's whether it be someone who's thinking about competing or is already part of it, you know, it's getting to be like, okay, I can relate, you know, this is it, or this is what I expect. And I think that's just the bonus about having this right now. So yeah, again, thank you for having me. This has been great.
No, man, you said at the beginning of this that you're quite shy, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty shy.
So how are you training yourself out of that? Because I know that that's something that a lot of people suffer with. And you know, I've been competing now for about 10 years in comps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in a number of different things. So I mean, standing in front of a crowd for me, I can kind of, you know, pick and choose moments to be nervous, and but somebody that's quite new to it, how are you combating your nerves?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just,
Maybe those shooters, huh?
I know. Lots of shooters. Oh man, I wish. I think that just makes me even more weird. You know, I definitely, I'm confident, you know, the way I carry myself, the way I bartend, it's just so different, I think, with the camera aspect. I was lucky enough to shoot with Best Drink Ever, who is a great group of guys who film not just cocktail making, but telling the story and kind of overlapping that. And I met up with them at my bar a couple weeks ago, and that was the first time. And I mean, it was two friends and two guys with cameras, and that was the realization of, oh man, like, you know, I can't be pouring my bottle shaking. I can't, you know, and that was my first step of realizing, like, okay, like, this is just about repetition, you know, talking about my story more, making the cocktail. I think of it as making a drink for a VIP, you know, just really being able to talk and flow and to have those points where, you know exactly what you're saying and having that comfortability. So for me, it's just, yeah, repetition. I think I'm going to do a masterclass soon enough where it's not like, you know what I'm actually thinking? Side note real quick. Next week, I'm going to throw a little pizza party where I just have some friends over. And I think every week I'm going to have some kind of house party at my house where I have a punch bowl of Nuevo Sol and some good food. And after we eat and drink, I sit everyone down and say, all right, guys, like, hear me out. Let me put this out there. And then really just kind of letting it flow from there. And
perfect,
you know, fingers crossed it goes as I expect. But you know, I think that's the only way I'm really dealing with it. What about you?
Man, first off, that's a perfect idea. Because there you're ticking off 3 boxes, right? You're ticking off consumers.
Mm-hmm.
You're ticking off practice, and the third and most critical point is you're highlighting your blind spots.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so I think you have to be aware of where your blind spots are. You know, it's for me, I always go to the same person. I go to my wife. Right. She's the most critical person. Yeah, she's the most honest person. I think I'll reframe.
She could be real with you.
Yeah, man. Like, you know, we all experience this when you're behind the bar, you're in your vest, you've got your little badges, you know, whatever. You got a nice shake. You make a drink and you try it, and you think to yourself, like, like, it's just like, it's not mine. It's a great drink, but it's not mind blowing or anything.
Right.
And you give it to someone and they try it and they say, that's the most amazing thing in the world. And then I give it to my partner, and she tries and she's like, it's not that great, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it keeps you level headed, sure.
Yeah. So I think, you know, for me, what I find a lot of benefit in is surrounding myself with people that aren't going to blow smoke on my ass.
Mm-hmm.
For, you know, before I presented top 8 to make top 3, I presented in front of her, and I don't have to tell her to be critical or to be brutally blunt. You know, she'll pull me aside and she'll say, like, that's too long. You know, I don't understand what that word is. This seems really kind of unnecessary. And you go back and you strip it and you strip it and you strip it. And at the end of it, you have your core content, and that's what works. You but I think you hit the nail on the head with repetition. You just, wherever you can get your story out, whoever's willing to listen to you, preach and preach and preach. Yeah. The shaky hands, you can't lose those.
Right.
You're going to shake, you're going to get nervous, but as long as your speech is right, your movements are right, then it's up to whatever God you believe in after that point.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think you got it right. Also, just having that constructive criticism. It's doing it until you know it like the back of your hand, for sure.
Yeah, and maybe not putting so much stress on yourself in the beginning stages. I think it's, for me, I have everything inside this phone. I've got about 12 different scripts written inside here. And what I did, the Bran, he's from Belgium. He won Global, 2 years ago, I think it was? Yeah, 2 years, right before Eric. And he came to Sweden. He held a masterclass. And so I went up. I wanted to go listen to what a previous Legacy winner had to say. And he told us, write down your script 10 times. Write down one script, put it away. Write down the next script, put it away. The next one, put it away. And he said, bring everything together and highlight everything that's the same. And he said to us that at that point, everything that you've said the same consecutively, that's important, and you will remember that.
Yeah. So I think it's also, besides the fact of having a great story and having all that, but 5, 6, 7 minutes on stage, it's about captivating the audience, getting the judges to, not start thinking about what they're going to have for dinner later on. It's about telling a story in an intriguing, inspiring way where you can't wait to hear what's next. And I think that's something that, I kind of did. I wrote, 4 different versions and plus and minus this, and, taking it seriously without having that serious face. It's a competition, but let's have fun,
And you said something really interesting. You said you have to keep their focus so they're not thinking about what they're eating at dinner. Yeah. For me, what I've got planned, touch wood, if I make globals, I've got a textiler friend, and she's going to put together a suit designed in cubes for me.
No way! Oh my God, I love it already.
So stand out. Don't be the same. Don't be the same rose in the bush.
Yeah. Yes. I think I like that you said that too about if I go to the globals, I think it's a lot about manifesting as well. It's putting it out there and putting whatever that is in the universe, and hope it comes back to you. So yeah, I'm sending you positive energy to make that cube suit. I love it.
Thanks, man. That's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to think that people are judging you constantly.
Yeah, like literally judging you, like writing on a scorecard, judging.
Yeah. And it's tough on a human level. It's tough to be thought of as, oh man, like I'm being torn apart now. And we had our seminar with the Swedish top 3 2 weeks ago, and our ambassador told us it's awkward even now at this stage to put yourself out there on social media. It's awkward to be braggadocious, and it doesn't feel for some people natural to say like my drink is the next Legacy. Because like the ones that succeed and push through, they break that barrier and they realize that you have an impact, and your impact is lasting and meaningful. So you have to make that impact last, and it has to be something that people resonate with, and that it's interesting, and you almost have to be shameless in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's creating something that, as they say, stands the test of time. Not just with the drink, but absolutely with the whole legacy behind it. And I think with Instagram, that was something where, I posted pictures of friends or different events or different things I'm doing. And now it's Nuevo Sol, it is Nuevo Sol all the time. And that was, a little difficult for me in the beginning. And it is about putting yourself out there. And I think it's I don't want to say humiliating, but it's about you know, just the gloves are off. This is me. This is my cocktail. This is it. And just being honest, you know, and
Yeah,
how many
and vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I got 3 Instagram accounts. I've got a personal, I've got my legacy, and I got one for my kids. Right? It's like
Oh my gosh.
you know, like online photo album, whatever. And then I've kind of realized my personal one has taken a complete backseat.
Yeah.
Like I haven't logged onto that since I entered Legacy. You know, I'll put up kid photos so that my family can see my my 2 beautiful boys, and then everything else is focused on like get Cuba's cocktail out there, get it be seen, let it be known. And like I said, it's you are against the odds, and it is difficult to even make globals, and that's the Olympics for us as bartenders.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do cool shit up until you get to that point. You have to have fun, because if you're not having fun, if you're not meeting new people around the world, don't enter.
Yeah, it's so true, for sure. You gotta be ready for it, because there's no stopping it now. I think with the Instagram thing too, it's everyone's taking such different routes, and I think it's rad that I actually started off with having a separate Instagram, and then I decided within a couple days that I wanted to stick with my own, because I wanted to reach as many people as possible, and I didn't want to go back and forth when one's my life and one's my legacy, when right now, my life is my legacy.
Oh, perfect, man.
So I think it varies for everybody. We all have different ways to go about it, and I think that it makes a lot of sense for yours. And I mean, you have a ton of followers, which is great. You have a good following. So
every time I try to big myself up about that, I look over at a guy. If you go check out Bacardi Ruby, he's Matthias over in Finland. The dude's rocking like 1,700 people. I'm like,
yeah. Every time I tag Bacardi, his name comes up, or Bacardi Ruby does, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I started following him. But yeah, that's a huge chunk right there.
Yeah, man. And but if you speak to him, he's been on this grind for months, like before Legacy even began. He kind of got his end in early, and he made his drink and started plugging it months before entries even opened. So
wow. That was smart.
Right. So for anyone who's listening to this, it's never too early. It's never too early to start a legacy, and it's never too late to end a legacy.
Right.
I think it's Gomas, the 6th generation Bacardi member. He said, your legacy ends when you decided to end.
So you took the words right out of my mouth. That's something that I continue seeing, and it's so true. It doesn't ever have to end. There's some winners that may not have made globals, but had made the next round, and I still see their cocktail around. It's something that's gonna follow us for who knows how long.
Yeah, perfect, man.
When you make it end, yeah.
Hey, do you have a bottle of Quattro over there?
I do. We taking a shot? It's only 1:20. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, we do that, man.
All right. Sunday fun day, man.
It's kind of become a little tradition.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, let me stream this also. All right.
Let's see here.
Yeah, Andy.
I'm ready.
Shot o'clock.
Let's get a nice little. I'm still trying to learn how to do. Here we go. All right.
All right, we documented this.
There's my new little buddy right over there. How you doing, Mel?
What's going on, Andy? Yeah. Oh man, I'm like scared and excited to take this, because one shot, as we say, turns into many more. But it's Sunday fun day, so here goes nothing, man. Cheers.
Here's to a new friend, and here's to your legacy, bud.
Here's to it.
Cheers.
I'm doing it straight out of here. Ah, delicious.
Amazing. So hey, dude, we can wrap it up there.
Sounds good.
We can send. I'll send you over the link. Push it out to all your friends, all your people over there, and hey, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time and reaching out to me, man. This is good stuff, and I look forward to following you and the continue of your legacy. So sending you positive energy. Make it happen.
Thanks, man. And I'm waiting for that boomerang too.
Oh yeah, I actually just got my plastic bottles, and I didn't want to ship glass ones, so I got your crazy address. I'll make sure to send it within the next couple of days, so you get it come New Year's.
Can you pronounce it?
What's that?
Can you pronounce my straight name?
Oh no, I don't remember. I can't even spell it. That was crazy. How do you say
it? Bro, I can't even say it.
With that Aussie accent.
I think it's like spas vegan.
Oh damn, well, that's better than I could have done. So.
Oh, man. All right, man.
Right on, man. Thanks again so much. You have a great day or great night. Yeah, take
care, man. Hey, all the love to you, Mel. And let's do this again real soon, yeah?
Sorry, I got a bunch of sirens going on. Give me 2 seconds. All right, say it again. My bad. That ending.
Hey, yeah, it was a boatload of fun, man. It's and I'm so proud of the work that you're doing over there, and let's do this again real soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Until
then. Perfect, buddy. All right, man. All right, peace and love to you. Peace.